So a massive topic that lines right up with what I just said. People will even have seen it talked about on a bunch of shows, but I think there's a lot of angles we can go with. Is obviously the CLG. I mean, the simple way to say it is let's just say like misaligned, miscommunicated, badly timed, sponsored segment, which is probably the most heinous part of it, with Bud Light, where basically the vibe of it was like this if people didn't see it. They sort of tried to show you what looked like it could have been, by the way, a clip from like, one of those reality shows like a TSM Legends or something. But in this specific clip, it was essentially the general manager, so basically the guy who decides who is hired and fired within CLG, just saying to their current League of Legends squad, which understandably have a pretty poor record, and I'm sure a lot of them, who by the way, not a lot of them are paid pretty well, are worried about their jobs right now, essentially just telling them this might be the last time you all play together. Didn't even then specify who might be kicked, and then just sort of was like, I thought that was like, I'll admit at the beginning, I'll say the same thing I said on my other talk shows. I genuinely don't actually really understand what the premise the CLG was trying to do with this was. Like I genuinely don't know, Crumbs, whether or not they thought that this would be like, I can't tell if they were trying to do it to show like, we're serious and, like, this is why we're telling our players that, performance is necessary. And that was a way to like offset the results. Or I can't tell. Part of me actually feels, as fucked up as this sounds, because I know no one on Reddit has this take, part of me almost feels like the guy doing it, the general manager guy, thinks he's doing them a favour. That like he actually thinks he's being kind by telling them like, you might be fired in like a week. And he's sort of like telling them like, I'm giving you a chance, a warning to sort of like get your game up. Or I can't really tell. Like where do you come out down this story, Crumbs?
I think there's a lot of signs to this story that just show you how shit it is. Because the first thing is the lack of communication, that the org itself doesn't really know who is who. That the post is saying the coach is telling them that they are being replaced, but it's the GM. So already there's a confusion going on among the team and who is actually running this organization. I really don't like that approach that they took. Like, I think it's kind of what you said. It's like, I'm doing you guys a favor. I'm telling you all up front that, hey, you might be replaced. Now, I heard how Amazing had phrased it and that he prefers the slow burn. Hey, problem has been addressed from weeks ago. This is something we need you to work on. It's not happening. We're going to get rid of you. Or we're going to try somebody new, because that's sort of where Monty also lied. And I like that approach much better. I am a big proponent of don't flame in public. Right? It's better to just like, why are you telling all of your players that they might be replaced? Like the morale is dead because now everyone is worried for their job. No one knows who's safe. All right. So if you had a player in mind, if you had a few players that you were looking at, it's like, hey, we're looking at these kinds of players, talk to them 1v1. I think that would have worked a lot better for them. So it showed me a lack of people skills within CLG, showed me a lack of responsibility between the coach and the GM, because I don't see why the GM needs to take this. Like, why is the coach not getting involved here? Why is the coach not saying, hey, don't tell these guys to my players? Like, these are my players. I will handle this. Right? Like, where is this line coming down? This is not the owner. This is just the GM saying this, and it's not doing it in a tactful way. So already the chain of command within CLG is looking already broken. And I just don't think that this is the right way to approach players being replaced. I think because you didn't have set metrics that you wanted to accomplish, and we know this because they said that they wanted a 3-0 and they didn't get a 3-0. So it's already clearly some sort of results-based analysis. They don't have some sort of, hey, each player needs to accomplish this every week. Each player needs these responsibilities for every single day of practice, every single game. So I wanted to see, hey, if you're a jungler, I need you to be on top of every camp timer, right? I need you to be on top of these kinds of rotations. These are your responsibilities within the game. And so we can go down the list. Hey, we told you when the game started or when the split started, these were the things you needed to do. Every single game, we have evidence of you not being able to improve at them or just dropping the ball altogether. We didn't even need to tell you. You knew that this would happen. This is a competitive sport. So that shows me that CLG just didn't have a plan altogether. And then it gets even spicier when Exogen, the coach, comes out and says, yeah, the problem comes from the top down. It's MSG putting this thing in. kudos to the CLG guys that thought that, hey, this is going to get us some clicks for Bud Light. Like, for sure, it got you promotion more than anything else CLG has done. I bet you that single event got them more impressions than they could have gotten the whole year combined. So it was their most successful PR stunt.
Right, Zabatine, obviously I should mention the context that, like, the reason I'm very interested in your take on this is you yourself have been on both ends of this equation. So when you were in Optic was the period of time when people might remember Optic basically sort of cycled through a whole bunch of players because you had that, like, lineup where you had, like, in theory, it was like, I think it was supposed to be like a 10-man roster, right? It was like an academy and an LEC squad you could swap between. So you've obviously handled individual benchings of players and mix and match. And then when you were on Immortals, you obviously were on the other end of the equation where they did just bench you and your whole team and people just sort of got fired mid-split. So what's your take on this one? I want to see what you thought of this.
I mean, I think there is two very, very clear and different aspects of it. I think the first one that has been mentioned very well by Crumbs is the sports aspect, is the way you want to treat the issue, like the sport issue. How do you treat the fact that you're going to bench people? And the other one is like making it public. So on the first one, I mean, I've been handling benches myself, and it's never something easy to do because, I mean, even if they are not making the best, and like players always feel like they're trying their best, right? Like that's the feeling like 99% of the players will have, is like, I'm trying hard, but it's not like converting into like results, and therefore I'm kind of lost. And I feel like sometimes because you have a short deadline, like because time is the most important resource within the season, you kind of like have to make this decision of benching a player, which is never pleasant because you still see the efforts, and you try your best, but that's something you do one-on-one. Like, you make the decision with your staff. I mean, on my side, I've always asked to my general manager, whether it was Romain or it was Keaton, I was like, I handle the sports decisions, because if you hire me to have an expertise on the game and you overlap, then you have the expertise on the game, and it cannot work, right? You have the expertise on the process, on the performance thing, but what's happening in the game should belong to the head coach. So I always like made the decisions when it was coming to a bench, aside from like the whole Immortal when I got like fired. And on the other hand, I mean, it was very sudden, the Immortal situation, so it was kind of different. It's very hard. I think it's very important to keep a certain level of PR when things happen. For instance, what happened to me with Immortals, if it was made public, like everything was made public today, I think it would be completely different that it happened within the season, right? Like, for instance, if CLG was filming all of that and tried to publish it at the end of the year when everybody is cooling down, everybody found a job, and you want to say a year in review, but you can't be perfectly transparent and perfectly on time when you deliver the thing. So that's my second point, right? So whatever, and no matter how mishandled it was from the sports perspective, let's assume it was even well managed, you can't film a bench and publish it the day or the week after. You can do it at the end of the split or at the end of the season when this has no impact anymore. For me, that's the biggest thing, and I think that this is where you see that people within the company, and this is where you can put the MSG thing, is like, they are doing their job and they think they have a great idea, so they just go and they just do it and they publish it. But you see that there is no connection, there is no passion about what's going on within the team. Like, there is not like every small silo within the company is working by themselves, but there is no vision on top that's trying to assemble everything into a sports project. And if you compare that to, I don't know, 100 Thieves, like, the media is well incorporated into the sports and everything, like, everybody talks to each other. So these kind of things have a very low chance of happening, or I would say lower chance of happening. So I think just the idea of publishing it on just after it happens, like, really baffles me. Even putting aside the sports management, where you don't really want to go to your 5-player and say they're going to be benches, because, like, punishing has never been motivating anyone, like, ever.
Actually, along those lines, go on, Crumbs.
The thing I'm most cynical about this thing is the wording at the end. Is like, I love you guys. That just rubs me the wrong way. Just throwing that out there. Hey, I just shit on all of you.
I know.
Wow, don't worry about it.
I feel like this is very American, though. I feel like it's very American.
It's a problem I have with all. Like, it's not like I see it before, and it's just a use of the word so poorly. It does happen a lot here, but it's just, I hate seeing that. It really rubs me the wrong way. Just telling us, oh yeah, love you guys, love you, don't worry. Come on.
I feel like it's very. I mean, from a French person, so we are known to be pretty bold, living in the US. I feel like when you have a bad talk with your management, whether you work in esports or any company, right? I was working in finance for 6 years before switching to full-time esports. Like when you have a difficult talk with your management, whether you're the management or you're the managee, it ends up with, yeah, I'm sorry this happens, but we have to make it work. So I hope this will change and everybody takes responsibility for what they do. And there is kind of an awkward silence, and everybody walks out, and you just move on. But I feel like within the American culture, you have to be extra polite because that's how, especially in West Coast, that's how people are. That I would say less bold. So it ends up in this weird situation where just on the name of being polite, you have these words that don't really correlate to the situation, but like there is a lack of tools to just leave this awkward silence because it's just not culturally accepted, and it ends up being very weird.
I think that's just lack of like use of the language by the people doing it, because just saying I love you is not being polite. Like that's just not like, I
sounds
don't think
insincere as well when you basically said someone's fired. Like it sounds a bit insincere, doesn't it? Like I'm gonna love you even though you're not working there anymore. It's like what?
Yeah.
What does that even mean then in that scenario? What is your love worth? Like, it's a bit like the other thing people love to do. This is like a more of a society thing. But as I always hated it, for example, if you're getting fired or something, you're getting disciplined, and then someone just throws in like, sorry. It's like, well, I can't fucking take sorry to the bank and cash it and pay my rent. Kind of like, oh, does that help me? Like, just fucking do it better, or just say tough shit, you know? I'd rather just deal with it. One thing I want to ask both of you before we move on, 'cause after this we'll talk about CLG the org, actually, because as you say, the MSG comment's quite telling, actually, when you think of CLG the last few years. But one thing I want to ask you both before we move on is this. What do you think about just the angle of, like, what if he'd have done this what if the same thing happened, there was just no video that we saw? So what if the guy who's the general manager did this, but privately he just told the players, look, this might be the last week you played again. Like you said there, Zabertin, you prefer to do it one-on-one, etc. Like, do you think it's actually a problem that he did it in front of the group? Like, do you think, what do you think on that topic? Because that was one thing I want to get a sense of.
There's two things. The thing is the moment. They're in the room just after going on stage or something. So it's very too early. Like there is too much emotion. You need to cool down, you need to kind of review. And I think that, as Crum said, you need to align it with something that has been preemptively, like you need to challenge the people on doing something, and then you compare the reality with what they've done. You can't just come and say, oh, we lost. So obviously, and the second thing is you don't want to address such a drastic thing towards everybody at the same time, because players, the confidence and the trust the players have and the will they have to actually challenge themselves on bettering their play. If they feel like from one day to the other they can be benched, no matter how good they are, no matter how hard they try, just be based on the end result, there is a very high chance they are not going to give their best, because the fright of actually getting fired or benched is just going to block them. So I feel like treating that immediately after the stage and in front of the whole group is going to have, like, there is a very high chance if one of your players suck, the other ones no. If there is one player that's actually not working or behaving or being good at the game, the four other can recognize that. So if this player is specifically changed, and the other players are going to receive that as like, oh, okay, so the management knows that like some players underperforming and they're trying to change it, and they're going to feel encouraged. But if you come and after a lose, so everybody gets hurt, and you say, no, some people are going to get benched. Maybe it's me, maybe it's you, maybe it's him. Maybe I should have not died here and not flashed for my teammate because now I look bad. And This whole thing, that's what we're mentioning on the previous video. And you play for yourself. So I think it's just treating these things like in front of a group. And if I had done this in my past, teams, it was really garbage. I think it should never happen.
Okay. Yeah, I also think that it shouldn't happen in public in general. Like, you just need to talk to the individuals that you're actually considering, because if you're at the position where you're legitimately considering benching all 5 and you're looking for 5 replacements, then, I mean, you're already so fucked. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. You're probably addressing a few key members. Like, you probably weren't going to bench Finn. You probably weren't going to bench Wild Turtle at the very least. So maybe the selection would have been 3 other players. So you don't even need to involve those others. I think that you got to keep it in private. And if you really want to have these kinds of discussions and you want to address the group as a whole for something larger, like Zabutin said, you got to involve the coach as well, because now you're undermining the coach's authority. It's the same problem that we had with TSM way back in the day, when Reggie would come in and try to coach the team and undermine the coach every single time. And then why would the players go back to believing the coach when at the end of the day somebody else can come in and say, all right, scratch that, what I say matters. So I think that you have to have Moon involved in that, right? The fact that Moon is not there, is not telling this to the players in the video, is a big problem for me. And I don't know if it happened before, but what we saw did not look like that.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.